The story of the Brazilian Flordelis dos Santos de Souza initially resembled a fairy tale. Born into a poor family and raised in one of the most crime-ridden neighborhoods of Rio de Janeiro, she managed to build what many called an empire. She became an influential spiritual leader, pursued a career in politics and showbiz, achieved international fame, and was even nicknamed the Mother of the Nation. But this image collapsed overnight when the dark side of her life came to light. Behind the facade of a successful and powerful woman lay a whole world of financial fraud, chaotic personal relationships, planned violence, and a group of followers ready to carry out their mother's every command. Flordelis dos Santos de Souza was born on February 5, 1961, in the municipality of Jacarezinho, one of the poorest neighborhoods in northern Rio. She was the youngest of two children. Her father was a creative artist and musician who played several instruments. But despite his talents, the family always had little money. Her mother, Arlete, earned extra money by babysitting the neighbors' children. The childhood of Flordelis and her older brother could hardly be described as carefree. They lived in a neighborhood plagued by poverty, banditry, and smuggling. The neighborhood covered 40 hectares, the equivalent of 50 football fields, and housed more than 65,000 people. Their house was small, dilapidated, and built on unstable ground. Clean water and sewage disposal were a luxury. Many residents didn't even know what a plumbing system was. Due to the unsanitary conditions, infections were a constant problem. The 1970s were particularly difficult, with unemployment and rising crime, but the residents stuck together, helped each other, and demanded that the authorities build schools and hospitals. Unfortunately, everything that was built quickly fell into disrepair. There was a lack of money, and gangs took over the territory. During these difficult years, Flordelis helped her mother with the children. But life in Jacarezinho became increasingly dangerous. At precisely this time, missionaries and street preachers appeared in the slums, bringing the word of God and hope to those who had almost none left. For many, faith became salvation. The Pentecostals, charismatic preachers who drew crowds, had a particularly strong influence. Flordelis's parents quickly joined this movement. Her father began holding prayer meetings in his home, which increasingly attracted large numbers of people. He believed that he had received a special spiritual gift after his baptism. Flordelis herself had been deeply religious since childhood. She not only believed, she was convinced that faith could heal, fulfill dreams, and change destinies. She sang in the church choir, and her vocal abilities quickly set her apart from the others. She often sang as a soloist. Gradually, following her father, Flordelis began leading prayer meetings herself. Already as a teenager, she recognized her ability to influence people. She attracted people. Her energy and conviction fascinated them. She sincerely believed that she was saving those she was leading to faith and felt she had to continue her mission as far as possible. Even at school, Flordelis began to feel chosen, as if she had been entrusted with a special mission. This sense of destiny played a decisive role in her future. Soon she became a mentor and preacher herself. Fragile and petite, she fearlessly entered the most dangerous corners of the neighborhood, where crime and the trade in illicit substances reigned. Her speeches about faith, forgiveness, and hope made even hardened gangsters listen. Few people could have such an impact on others, but Flordelis had the gift of persuasion. In 1975, when she was only 14 years old, something terrible happened. Her father and older brother were killed in a car accident. Only she and her mother survived. But Flordelis did not break down. She decided that this was a test from God to strengthen her faith. She soon persuaded her mother to rent a room for prayer meetings. Even then, her charismatic leadership was awakening within her. Her sermons were inspiring, and her following grew. At 20, Flordelis married. Little is known about her first husband. He was a deeply religious man. They met at her lectures. The marriage produced 3 sons. Despite the poverty in the community, The family seemed strong, but at 30, Flordelis became a widow. Alone with her children, she again relied on her mother for support. Together, they opened a kindergarten in their home, and on weekends, Flordelis continued to preach. Her audience grew, but over time her relationship with her congregation became almost fanatical. Her focus shifted. Now she spoke less about God and more about herself. She began to talk about visions and gifts from above. She claimed to receive messages from God in her dreams. She prophesied the future and called herself a preacher for lost souls. Against the backdrop of rising crime in Rio, Flordelis decided to take action. With a group of followers, she went to the most dangerous places and persuaded gangsters and addicts to take the right path. Teenagers in particular were the focus of her efforts, as she believed they could still be reformed, and she succeeded. She won them over with her sincerity and motherly care, telling stories of how she had convinced gangsters to release her simply by remaining calm. For many, she became a prophet. There were rumors that she had been sent by God himself. In the early 1990s, Flordelis opened a kind of youth home. There, the young people were provided with food, a roof over their heads, and, more importantly, the feeling of being part of a family. It seemed like an ideal story, but the more power and influence she gained, the more terrifying its dark side became. From the outside, everything appeared noble. Flordelis was helping young people, and her reputation in society grew. But soon, the first oddities began to emerge. It turned out that far from all of her charges were orphans or homeless. Many had simply run away from home because of disputes with their parents. Flordelis didn't ask unnecessary questions. Her doors were open to everyone. She didn't formally adopt these children, but simply let them live with her. The authorities turned a blind eye for a long time, even though the situation was beyond suspicious. There were no rules in her house. One could come and go as one pleased and stay as long as one wished. Rumors spread quickly. At Flordelis's, there was free food and complete freedom. Eventually, hordes of young people flocked to her, which greatly angered the parents whose children had fled to their savior. But for her charges, she remained a holy woman. The most important thing was that her charges were well-fed and content. Many were baptized under her influence and began to believe that she was their spiritual mother. Over time, there was no room left in her house. Young people flocked to her from all parts of Rio. In 1992, 15-year-old Anderson do Carmo, a boy from a troubled family, moved in with her. He quickly became the family's favorite. Flordelis singled him out from the others. He was tall, athletic, and handsome. Everyone thought he was with her eldest daughter, Simone. They looked like a couple, but things turned out differently. As soon as Anderson turned 18, he and Flordelis moved in together, and a year later, they officially announced their relationship. The age difference was 16 years. There were rumors that their relationship had begun before he came of age, but they never commented. Despite the criticism, the couple seemed happy. They preached together, founded their own church, and ran an orphanage that Flordelis had established before their marriage. A year after the wedding, a strange incident occurred. A woman came to Flordelis in tears, threw a newborn baby at her feet, and begged her for help. Flordelis took the baby in and later had it adopted. Soon after, the woman returned with other mothers and a group of children. They were allegedly left without care due to the unrest in the city. Despite the cramped conditions, Flordelis took them all in. The story of the preacher who saved children spread through the media, interviews, television programs, articles. Philanthropists donated money to her home. Soon, the whole world was talking about her, from Brazil to Europe. But the greater her fame, the more closely the authorities looked. Soon the truth came to light. It turned out that Flordelis had no legal rights whatsoever to all these young people living in her home. Moreover, she had no money to support them. The children came and went as they pleased, without any control. Many actually had families who now demanded that Flordelis be punished for depriving minors of their liberty. A loud scandal ensued. The authorities initiated criminal proceedings. In response, Flordelis quickly gathered all her charges and moved to another parish. But that didn't help. The legal proceedings continued. Flordelis called a press conference and declared that she wanted to publicly justify herself. Journalists flocked to the event. Everyone was eager to hear what this controversial figure had to say. At the event, she declared that she was not afraid of the court and had done nothing illegal. She even promised to contact the UN if necessary. Her emotional speech once again moved the audience, and many sided with her. After this scandal, Flordelis not only did not lose influence but even became more popular. She received official permission to mentor some of the young people. Businessmen helped her buy a huge house for more than 50 people. A former garage was converted into a prayer room. The home services quickly developed into a lucrative business. She and her husband introduced the church tithe, 10% of the parishioners' income. Sponsors and benefactors flocked to her like a cornucopia. Soon she built the first fully fledged church on the site of an old tram depot. Now 5,000 people gathered daily for her sermons. But her greatest asset was her singing. Without hesitation, Flordelis launched a music career. In 1998, she released her debut album. She recorded a total of 8 studio albums and 1 live album. In 2002, Brazil's largest television channel awarded her the title of Mother of the Nation for her help for disadvantaged children. They then made a documentary with prominent actors. The film was shown at an international festival, and her image definitively became a cult classic. However, she had no luck in politics at first. In the next 2 years, she failed twice in elections, for city council and for mayor. It wasn't until 2018 that she made it into the Chamber of Deputies of Rio de Janeiro and received parliamentary immunity. Together with Anderson, she opened 8 branches of her church and launched a chain of stores featuring her portraits and motivational quotes. Income rose rapidly. Soon the couple moved to an elite neighborhood in Rio. They bought a fancy villa, a luxury car, and hired maids and security personnel. Although Anderson was 16 years younger, their marriage seemed perfect. Over time, he became her manager and accountant, and then began preaching himself. But the more power Anderson gained, the less power Flordelis had. It got to the point where she couldn't spend a cent without her husband's consent. Anderson controlled all the finances, and this infuriated her. The couple grew distant, but for a public figure like Flordelis, divorce would have ruined her reputation. On June 16, 2019, Flordelis organized a romantic dinner in the hope of saving their relationship. They spent several hours at the restaurant and strolled along the waterfront until morning. According to her, they were followed by 2 men on motorcycles on their way home. Anderson tried to escape, but couldn't. At home, Flordelis went into the house while Anderson parked the car in the garage. Shots rang out. Flordelis rushed outside, but one of her adopted sons stopped her, saying, "You'd better not see that." Anderson was shot at point-blank range. About 30 bullets. Death was instantaneous. The assassination of the mother of the nation's husband shocked the entire country. Newspaper front pages gave it nationwide coverage. Many concluded that Flordelis herself was the target because of her political activities. She organized a mass prayer service in her husband's memory. Thousands of people came to support her. Police examined the camera footage and found strange details. No motorcycles were visible on the traffic cameras. The cameras on the house didn't film the garage. Too convenient, right? One camera, however, recorded something suspicious. 20 minutes before the murder, a taxi pulled up to the house. From there, Lucas, the adopted son and a former small-time dealer of illegal substances, emerged. He ran into the house and disappeared in another car. During interrogation, Lucas broke down and confessed that he had brought money into the house, apparently from his shady dealings. He explained that, a week earlier, he had bought a pistol at the request of another son, Flavio. Flavio disappeared after the murder, but was quickly found. Things got even worse. It turned out that the children in the house lived according to a strict hierarchy. The younger ones obeyed the older ones, and all of them obeyed Flordelis. Their main task was to protect their mother at all costs. In fact, they were a personal protection force, ready for anything. The investigation revealed that the plan to eliminate Anderson had been maturing for almost a year. 6 attempts to poison him failed. Then Flordelis personally gave the order to change tactics. During interrogation, she, of course, denied everything and blamed her sons. She claimed that Anderson had cheated on her and that they had found correspondence on his phone and taken the law into their own hands, but the sons' statements were clear and consistent. She was guilty. Other dark details also came to light. Flordelis had intimate relationships with several adult adopted sons. Anderson obstructed their freedom. 6 sons were arrested for incitement to murder, but Flordelis herself could not be arrested at first because deputies were granted immunity. The public was outraged. Followers turned
2021 wurde ihr
away.
die Immunität
The church
entzogen.
empire
Im November
collapsed.
2022
First, her
verurteilte
immunity
das
was
Gericht
revoked.
Flordelis
In
zu
November
50 Jahren Haft,
2022, the
was
court
faktisch einer
sentenced
lebenslangen
Flordelis to
Freiheitsstrafe
50 years
entspricht.
in prison,
Der Mörder für
effectively
60
a
Jahre.
life sentence.
Lukas, der die
The
Waffe
murderer,
besorgt hatte, 7
Flavio,
Jahre.
received
So
33
endete die
years.
Geschichte einer Frau, die
Lucas,
sich aus
who
der
had
Armut
procured
heraus
the
bis an
weapon,
die Spitze der
received
Macht
7
hochgearbeitet
years.
hatte
Thus
und
ended the
schließlich an
story
ihrer
of a
eigenen
woman who had
Habsucht und
worked her way
Grausamkeit
from poverty
scheiterte.
to the pinnacle of power, ultimately failing because of her own greed and cruelty. Thanks for watching, and take care.